Shalom, shalom. I'm Elder Isaac Hill, Restores of Truth Ministries. Today's Scripture Nugget, we're going to come from the book of Genesis, or Bereshith, chapter 3. And we're going to continue on the same theme that our previous Scripture Nugget on Yahweh, our shepherd, by proxy. And we found out on last week, coming from the book of Ezekiel, chapter 34, how in verse 11 and verse 12, how that Yahweh desired, or he said that he will become our shepherd. And we found out that he became our shepherd and he led his people, Israel. And not only did he lead them, but he also led them by proxy. Proxy, what we mean is that he used vessels. And in this case, last week we saw that he used Moshe, and he used Yeshua. He used Moshe as the Torah giver. He used Yeshua. The scripture says in 2 Corinthians, I believe chapter 5, that it was Elohim in Messiah restoring the people, or restoring the sheep. And we also found out that he used David as a ruler. And so we found out last week that it was Yahweh all along being our shepherd, even though he used other vessels. And this week we're going to come from Bereshith, or Genesis chapter 23, or chapter 3 rather. We're going to look at an action that Yahweh did that shows that he was acting as a shepherd, So this week we're going to focus on acts of a shepherd to prove that it is Yahweh all along. So in Genesis, Bereshith chapter 3, verse 21, now this is after Adam and Eve, Hava had sinned, and they were naked. But look at this action here. It says in verse 21, Elohim and Yahweh Elohim made coats of skin for the man and his wife and dressed them. He acted as a shepherd. He saw them in a condition and he responded to the condition. Why? Because he's acting as a shepherd. And all throughout the Torah and all throughout the Tanach, the older patriarchs, if you will, Moshe, Abraham, and David, they understood that all along it is Yahweh being our shepherd. Now, look at, if you will, in the same book, in Genesis chapter 22, you remember the story of Abraham. He was on trial, if you will, per se, and Yahweh asked him to come up to the mountain to offer an ascending offering. And he bound his son and he left and he went up to the mountain. Now, when you look at this, look at verse 28. I love the response, or verse 8 rather. Well, let's look at verse 7 to set verse 8 up. And Isaac, or Yitzhak, spoke to Abraham, his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, See the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for an ascending offering? And Abraham said, My son, Elohim does provide for himself. Now that's a key phrase there. He provides for himself the lamb for an ascending offering. And the two of them went together. Now look at this. Abraham said that it is, paraphrasing, it is not my responsibility. It is not my responsibility to provide the offering. It is the one that told me. And in this particular text, it is Yahweh. It is Elohim. So Abraham makes the reply, or makes the statement, Elohim will provide for himself. Paraphrase. He will provide for himself. And so it is not Abraham, or it is not the sheep responsibility to do the providing. It's the shepherd's responsibility to do the providing. And so Abraham understood this. So with confidence, he could go up and perform this act, perform the obedience act, because he knew all along If the shepherd is leading me, then it is the shepherd's responsibility. It's not the sheep. It is the shepherd's responsibility. Now, let's look at another act that we can find throughout all the Torah and throughout all the Tanach and the rest of the scriptures that give us an indicator. It give us an indicator that Elohim will act as a shepherd. Now, in Shemot, or in Exodus chapter 13, look at verse 21. And Yahweh went before them by the day in a column of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a column of fire to give them light, so as to go by day and night. Now look at this phrase within this text. It says, and Yahweh went before. Aha. That's an act of a shepherd. He goes before. And so all throughout the Torah and all throughout the Tanakh, you're going to see our Father in these phrases. He went before, or I shall fight, I shall go before. Those are indicators, and those are nuggets, if you will, or markers that show that he's acting as a shepherd. And all throughout the scriptures, you'll see that. It is his desire. We found that out on our last scripture nugget in, I believe it was in Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 11 and verse 12, where Yahweh said, I will be a shepherd unto them. And so we see all along he was a shepherd. And he still is a shepherd, even though last week we showed that he did it by proxy through Moshe and through Messiah Yeshua. Now, again, the patriarchs understood this. In Tehillim, or in Psalms 23, David says in verse 1 that Yahweh is my shepherd, I shall not want. One translation says, I shall not want, which means it has a Hebrew word, kasar, which means I shall not lack. I shall not lack. And it also means I shall not decrease. David understood that. Moshe understood that. Abraham understood that. The prophets understood that. Every leader of Israel that was chosen by Yah and had the spirit, the set apart spirit, or the Ruach, placed in them and upon them to perform certain things, they understood that it was Yahweh being a shepherd. So as you study the scriptures and as you look throughout the Tanakh and throughout the Torah, look for those indicators and those markers. He went before them. I shall go before you. I shall fight for you. Those are indicators that Yahweh is being a shepherd. Shalom, shalom. See you next time on Scripture Nuggets.